My name is Christina Duncan, and I'm a violinist from Canada. Over the last 3 years, I have been working to film the violin technique method of Professor Michael Frischenschlager. Today, I have the great pleasure of being able to speak with him today on his thoughts on music education and his approach to teaching. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Thanks, me too. So in your book, Classical Violin Technique, you mentioned two professors who were a great inspiration to you. Franz Samuel, the great violin master of the Viennese school, and the prolific soloist Yehudi Menuhin. Is there a special insight or story that you have from your own time as a student with these masters?
Well, there's not a big story. There's only the great feeling of gratitude to these two great artists and musicians. Franz Samuel, as violinist, was the typical Viennese chamber music and orchestra player on a very high artistic level. He had an absolutely serious, solid technique, especially in the left hand, with wonderful intonation. But in the right hand, it was not a great solistic sound.
Okay.
But these musical and violinistic qualities, he wanted, as teacher, to continue through his students. As teacher, he was an enormous pedagogical talent. He had authority. He was severe, but always warm and sweet, and he had a great patience. And he loved to teach. He loved his students, and he helped his students always if they had some everyday little problems. He helped them, and students who did work hard could always count at his support for the career. I, myself, must be enormously grateful to Samuel, because I thank him that I could, as young, still a student, play 4 years in the Vienna Philharmonic.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and still more. Without him, I wouldn't have been professor at our university. It was thanks to him I got this job, and so my gratitude is really very deep.
Well, mine too then, thank you. And then you continued your studies with Menuhin in Rome.
Yeah, that was great. Menuhin, compared to Samuel, was the worldwide famous soloist. He was one of the most fascinating virtuosos of all times, especially as a child prodigy.
Right.
And he had an incredible aura around his person, and the students who came to this academy in Rome, they were already quite advanced in violinist and technical level. And Menuhin, as teacher, concentrate mostly on the music, to work the music with the students, and on sound, phrasing, articulation, and always he was insisting, who plays violin must show his feelings. There must be always a lot of expression. And this, for me, was a great time. These 2 years, where he once a month or twice a month came to teach us.
That's really incredible. And do you have any memories when you were studying with Menuhin?
Yeah, I had the joy to study the big pieces, Brahms concerto, even Brahms double concerto with my brother, who was cellist, and yes, Mozart, and yes, quite Tchaikovsky. And he always told me, that I remember so much, he told me, always, don't fight so much with the violin. I tried to be very intensive, and I was sometimes too aggressive, so he was criticizing this. But I loved his lessons. These lessons were, just because of his personality, were so stimulating. And there was only one thing I didn't like so much. Every lesson, Menuhin started 15 minutes to make yoga with us.
Oh, no.
And for yoga, I was too stupid at that time. I didn't understand it. I thought I coming to Menuhin to study Brahms and Mozart and Beethoven, and I must sit on the floor and make 15 minutes yoga. So this is the only thing, but I was too stupid. For Menuhin, yoga was very, very important.
I guess if you had enjoyed yoga more, we would all have to bring yoga mats to school every Tuesday.
Yes, maybe.
It would be a completely different story. Yeah. Your musical career and the legacy work with Fritz Kreisler are being spoken about in other interviews, so I would like to focus on your teaching career. 2021 marks the 50th anniversary of your teaching at the University of Music and Performing Arts. And I had a question about how you chose the students for your class, because anyone who would come into your class has lessons for 5 years, 2 or 3 times a week. What are some of the things that you're looking for in the students that audition for you?
Yes, the right selection of students is very, very important for a teacher and for a school. The normally examination of admission is that it's a problem, it's like a flashlight. It's just a moment, so we can only judge what we hear in this moment. How is the technical capacity, how is the musical expression, but we do not know more. And then on this impression we get, we choose. The much better thing is and I always tried to have this, to meet students who want to come to me already before, to make with them a summer academy or some private lessons, and then it's very different. You can understand better their qualities, their problems,
Okay.
and what you, in this case, much more can judge is their personality and their character. And it is nothing new that this relation between a teacher and his student must work. It can be that a very good student doesn't feel well with me, of my personality, and the same is from the teacher to the student. So, in any case, choice of the right student, for, as you said, whom we are working for several years, is extremely important.
And once you start building your class and have actually quite a big class, is what you're famous for, how did you teach each student differently and uniquely?
Yes, I mean, one of the most fascinating aspects of teaching music, perhaps any case of teaching, is that every student is so different. Yeah. And then of course I don't know always when I am successful, I try really to understand and to act with each student as pedagogue a little bit different. Right. To respect the little problems, the little qualities, big qualities of a student, and then with this to build up the teaching and the development of his career, his development as musician and violinist.
And when you teach and you use your method, you make a great effort to combine that with musicality. And how did this develop, teaching technique and musicality to students?
Yeah, this is very well known. There is no really professional playing an instrument without having worked hard the technique.
Yes.
So the technique is really the condition sine qua non. So I always tried to work regularly, and this is so important also for the students, absolutely regularly, consequently, all technical problems we have, we need to master if you want to play Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, and so on. No? And then, so I made always a special technique lesson for all students to work together, all technical problems we have to learn. And then another lesson, at least one lesson, only dedicated to the music. And what for me is also so important, that the students understand that when they know, when they master the technique of a sonata, of violinistically, then really begins the real work. The work on the music, the work on the phrasing, the work on the dynamic, the work on the agogic. And many students do not understand enough that this work for music is the most important, and it's also really hard. And one must never give up. One should always have a very high goal where you try to arrive, and maybe one never arrives, because in music the goal is always higher and higher. This is also the most fantastic thing in music, not that we always have to look up, and we maybe are on a good level, but it goes always ahead.
That's very insightful, thank you. What advice do you have for violinists working to create a career in the 21st century?
The basis is always, the fundament is always the music. The first thing is, I think young violinists should have a great love for the music and a great love for the instrument. And then working hard for a very clear goal where they would like to arrive. And as the last thing is to have patience to arrive step by step.
Thank you. What piece impresses you most when a student performs it well?
There's not only one piece, there are several pieces. I think the concerto of Mozart,
Yes.
Sonata by Bach, or Partita by Bach, the concerto of Beethoven, which for me is the most difficult of all musically, and the concerto of Brahms.
Beautiful. What is the best violin you've ever played on?
I was so lucky for some concerts to play Stradivari violin.
Wow.
It was under the name Naché, and it was the owner from a very rich man in Genoa, from the Costa family. And I could play on this violin, and when I played on this violin, I was in heaven.
That's incredible. The last question is from our musicologist, Rudy Eigmiller. If you could perform in a quartet with musicians from any age, who would you choose?
For the cello, let's start down. For the cello, it would be, of course, Pablo Casals.
Yeah.
For the viola, I think I would be happy to play with Primrose. And for the violin, of course, I would play second violin, that's clear. And for the violins, I had first violin, I would have three great musicians and virtuosos. It would be Heinrich Wilhelm Ernst, then it would be Joseph Joachim, and then Isaïe, Eugene Isaïe, and of course Fritz Kreisler.
Makes complete. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.